ladies and gentlemen, very special guest today. We have an awesome guest lined up. This is Bryce Paul from the Crypto 101 podcast. He is a co-host with Pizza Mind. Bryce, how are you today, man?
Hey, man, things are good. Chilling in San Diego, working on my newsletter, kind of reading the markets right now, and just got back from Scottsdale. I was over there for a little while doing my thing, hit a couple rounds of golf.
Oh,
and
nice.
Yeah, life's good, man.
Okay, good deal, man. Happy to see a fellow golfer on the show.
Hell yeah. I'm happy to see you're wearing a Tezos shirt too, by the way.
That's right, dude. I'm repping Tezos Boston, man. So
that's actually a beautiful shirt. I really like that one.
I got it at a convention or like a hackathon I went to. It was like one of my first things I did when I got involved with crypto. So
Are you based out of Boston?
Yeah. I'm over here in Boston. So
awesome.
Yeah, man. So why don't we let the viewers know who you are, what do you do, and how did you get involved with crypto for those of you who don't know Bryce?
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, first, I just really appreciate you bringing me on and for listening to the pod and being a big supporter. I'm Bryce. I've got the Crypto 101 pod. We've also got, if you go to cryptorevolution.com, Pizza Mind and I wrote a book. And it's your guide to the future of money. So we go through the basics of money, like where did it come from? How did it start? What the heck is this stuff that we all think we're familiar with? We all think we know what money is, but do you really, right? So we talk about the progression from barter to, rare shells and stones, and finally gold, and then paper backed by gold. And then 1913 hit when the Federal Reserve opened and, fractional reserve banking came along, where you could say, well, we've got, $100 worth of gold in the bank, but we're going to issue, $900 of money, basically, based on that. So it's the whole idea of money is starting to lose its moneyness, right? Its soundness. And so then we look at the progression from there to digital currencies and cryptocurrencies, and how this, a fully auditable supply and something that's hard capped and something that's peer-to-peer and that can't be shut down, right? These are unstoppable protocols. These are, truly unable to be stopped. You could shut down, the FBI could seize the domain of, ethereum.org or whatever, but that has no effect on being able to stop the transfer of value across borders permissionlessly for virtually no cost. So we've done that. If you go to crypto101insider.com as well, we've got this big group of people that's coming together that we call Crypt Nation. So you'll see hashtag Crypt Nation floating around. That's just our group where we kind of get together with everybody and lead them through, show them how to set up wallets, show them, what exchanges are safe and which ones aren't, right? And what the difference between certain wallets are. And we do deep dives on, all the different coins and all the different sectors of the coins. So we cover a lot. Basically we're just excited about crypto and spreading the word. And there's just tons and tons and tons of money to be made in this market. It's still so small. We're just gearing everybody up for the next inevitable bull run. We're going to take out 20K. The media is going to get back, giving a bunch of attention to crypto. And we'll be positioned, right? Because one of the things that we always say is that, smart money buys when times are quiet, right? When nobody's talking about crypto or nobody's talking about a certain asset, right? Smart money is the one that's buying during times of consolidation, times of quiet, right? And then once that big expansion happens and prices moving so fast, that's really the time when dumb money is buying, because they're buying on emotion. So we do a lot of behavioral analysis and sentiment analysis as well. I just launched a new company with the guys from thetie.io.
Okay.
And my team over here, and it's called altcoinalert.com. So you guys can go check out altcoinalert.com. And for anybody watching this, if you /discount, altcoinalert.com/discount, I think you're going to be really, really pleased. We set that up just for your listeners and for anybody who might be interested in checking it out at a nice discount. So we originally priced it, if you go to altcoinalert.com, for $997 a month. Your discount's going to be $97 a month. So hopefully your viewers appreciate that and check it out at least. And there's a money back guarantee if you guys don't like it.
Awesome, man. And I'm a proud member of Crypt Nation. And like I
Hell
said,
yeah.
I started listening to Crypto 101 about a year ago, and that's the spark that really like lit the fire in me to get involved with crypto. And you bring up some really, really good points because, crypto is more than just money. I think it is a revolution, and we
Yeah.
have to understand how money got started and to where we are today. And we have to start to question, why are we using fiat cash? Because you see the Fed printing trillions of dollars. It's like, where is it coming from when you have sound money sitting in front of you with cryptocurrency? So why don't we tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself? Like, how did you first get involved with crypto, and like, what was that light bulb moment where you're like, holy shit, this is going to be it for me?
Yeah, bro, that's great stuff. I mean, I want to harp on that real quick because you can never overstate the importance of what you just said about the Fed printing money. And I have a couple anecdotes, right? A couple little life stories that might kind of lend some color to anybody who's watching this. But I have, family members that have known me for years, and I'm the crypto nut, right? And nobody has ever bought crypto. My girlfriend, right, for instance, knew about crypto, knew me as the crypto nut. Never bought crypto, never asked about it. And then what happened in March, in March 15th, I remember the day, the Federal Reserve, what they did was they reduced the reserve requirements to 0%. So historically, it had always been between 3 and 10. It had been either 3% or 10% reserve requirements in your in the bank. So that means if Chase has $1,000 of deposits, they only need to keep 3% of that withdrawable, and they could lend out and create more money that way. And so there was this whole idea that it was like that bazooka that the Fed kind of enacted when they said that now there's no reserve. So it's literally just printing money and lending and lending and lending just to prop up the markets. And the anecdote that I have is that 3 of my cousins and my girlfriend all asked me like within a week of like, whoa, like what's going on? This is nuts. Where's all the money coming from? And like they all like 4 asked like, well, where does the money come from? Like, I think I'm
Right.
starting to understand why you are so crazy about Bitcoin. Where does money come from? And then from there, they all started buying in crypto
Yeah.
and like, oh, this is nuts. And like COVID really accelerated the trend of, work from home, telemedicine, all these digital first sort of, trends that were, steadily growing. When COVID hit, that trend acceleration 5x. So
Mhm.
digital money, I'll take pictures everywhere I go of no cash accepted here, contactless payment, right? There's contactless delivery. It's all about, digital first. And obviously, VR is going to have a big uptick from all that kind of stuff, virtual reality. But yeah, just everybody's starting to wake up to the idea that, money is a promise. It's an IOU, and that sometimes money doesn't work. And I actually saw an interview with Warren Buffett. It was at his conference 2 weeks ago, I want to say. And I'm actually writing my newsletter a little bit on what he said.
Okay.
But one of the things that he said was that he never actually believed that the Fed would do what it has done in the past few months. He said, I was wrong. He goes, I always expected the Fed to have a little bit more of a conservative kind of stance. And he goes, I just never expected that. And he goes, I was wrong. And then the other thing that he said was that sometimes money stops working. And the only thing that works in the entire world is, U.S. Treasury bonds and Treasury bills. And that becomes the medium of exchange. And so that woke me up where I was like, wow, like sometimes literally money, like credit stops working. The cash, the dollar bills, like at a very, very high level, stop working. And central banks and governments need to be like, oh shit, we need to settle the books. And he goes, when you have Treasury bills and Treasury bonds, that's sometimes the only medium of exchange that will work. And like, obviously for us, we're never going to be exchanging Treasury bills, but when you have trillions of dollars of Treasury bills, that's sometimes the only thing that works. So that kind of woke me up. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, what happens if governments start to default?
Right.
There's another quote that I want to read real quick. And I saw it. It's by a guy named Felix Zulauf. And he goes, a study by Hirschman Capital shows that out of 51 cases of government debt breaking above 130% of GDP since 1800, 50 governments have defaulted. The only exception so far is Japan. And we mention this because the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, expects US debt to hit 141% by the end of 2020. So that eclipses
Wow.
that 51 cases of government debt breaking above 130%. 50 of them have defaulted. So we're starting to be on the brink of government defaults. We've seen it in Lebanon. We've seen it in Turkey. So I end that quote. But the idea here is that it's not always, I mean, I'm not calling like the world's going to end and governments are going to shut down, but you guys have to understand that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are governmentless, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is why I get so excited about it, because governments are run by people. And this cryptocurrency, of course, it's created by people, but it's run by software and it's upgraded as the entire network kind of agrees on these updates. And you're never going to be diluted, right? Like when you hold the US dollar and the government prints double the amount of money that they had, you get diluted by 50%. Your purchasing power does. So, IMF, International Monetary Fund, they're huge. They kind of are like one of the lenders of last resorts to central banks and stuff like that. And if they expect the U.S. debt to hit 141% by the end of 2020, like that's extreme. And history shows that there have been defaults. Of course, the Fed and the Treasury and the executive branch, everybody's going to kind of come together to make sure that doesn't happen, that America doesn't default, because if it does, then we're going to be in complete chaos. And at that point, who cares if your Bitcoin's worth $1 million, because there's going to be riots in the street.
Right.
But it's just a crazy little thought to see that. So if anybody wants to pause it and rewind it and re-listen to that quote, that was a good one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you bring up some great points, and this is a concern that I've always had, where there's this hyperinflation possibility kind of looming. And my big question is, what happens if the US dollar no longer becomes the standardized currency for trading across the world? Like, do you see that
we're already
happening?
seeing it? Yeah, absolutely. We're already seeing it. When we entered that agreement with Saudi Arabia, I think it was like 1970s, about their oil only being able to be purchased and traded for the US dollar. That's been a huge upward demand for the US dollar. The other thing is that, IRS tax liabilities, they're only payable in the US dollar. Credit that the US government issues, it's only repayable, right? You can only service your debt in the US dollar. So it's a pretty intricate, cool system that they have, but it's all based on debt. And the only reason that the US dollar or any fiat currency has that upward demand, right? Why it doesn't just inflate away to zero, is because people always have to repay their debts. But what happens when people stop being able to repay their debts? And we've seen it time and time again. And it's going to be, it'll be scary if that happens. But I did see, I forget the countries. I know it's, I want to say Russia, China, Russia, and one other country is starting to sidestep the US dollar in their oil exports and purchases. It might be, it's going to be an interesting trend to see for sure. But US dollar always has been the strongest. But they're trying, the America and China is in a race to devalue their currency because they want to, devalue their debt to one another for the trade war. And then we've got everybody trying to compete with, 0% interest rates, negative interest rates in some cases. And again, in that same speech I referenced from Warren Buffett, he goes, negative interest rates are actually the most, what did he call it? The most outlandish, the most outlandish or the craziest experiment that has ever happened.
Yeah.
In economic. He goes, it's the most interesting question ever posed to economic theory. And I don't believe it can go on much longer. He's been saying that they've been testing it for 12 years. The world has been testing negative interest rates for 12 years. I think Japan and a couple other countries, maybe Denmark, have negative interest rates. But he said that economic question of negative interest rates and can that work will never have been tested with as much force as they will within the coming months in the back half of 2020. So it's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Can you kind of break that down, the negative interest rates for our viewers that may not know what that is?
Yeah, definitely. I was actually just going to do that. I was going to say, like, negative interest rate, like there's always been a time value to money. It's 101, right? It's like supply and demand. It is one of those things that is a cornerstone of economics. And time value of money means that a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. The reason why that is because liquidity and accessibility. And I have a dollar today. I need to use it. I rather have that and plus inflation, right? It's money. It's designed to go down. So what happens with normal interest rates is that I have $100 and that's my money. And you want my $100 and I don't really need it. So I'm going to say, hey, bro, take the $100, give me back $101, right? At the end of the year. So that's a 1% interest rate because I'm saying I'm taking a risk, right? That's why interest rates are always theoretically positive because there's a risk, right? And the risk is that you default, you don't pay me back. You lose that $100, you're unable to pay back. So that's why there's always an interest rate. And that's the time value of money. So now what negative interest rates are doing is I'm saying, hey, bro, you need $100, no problem. I'll give you $100 at a negative 1% interest rate. All I'm asking is that at the end of the term that we've come to, you give me back $99. So now I'm paying you to borrow my money. And that is a phenomenon. That is something that is, again, Warren Buffett says it himself.
Right.
It's the most interesting question ever posed to economic theory. Is it going to work? And we have to ask ourselves, why is this happening, right?
Right.
And that's a question that a lot of people can't really answer yet. And I'm even struggling to answer, why is it happening? But what's happening is people, there's just so much risk in the ecosystem that people just don't have a choice, right? People don't have a choice except to accept the fact that, the money itself is starting to degrade in quality. And that you could see, 0 -% interest rates means that your dollar is just losing purchasing power so much quicker. So it's it looks like that kind of blow off top, right? That final euphoric phase, but the opposite of that, right? So I'd say a capitulative phase of just the design of the US dollar, right? The design of any currency is to go down in time. And negative interest rates are an acceleration of that entire mechanism. So it's fascinating to watch, but if you're holding the US dollar, if you're holding any sort of fiat currency, you got to just understand the mechanics that are going on behind it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. Now, for you, like when you first got started inside crypto/blockchain, like what was one of the first niches that really gained your interest?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. It's, to be honest, the very first time I learned about crypto, I was sitting I was working for a media company, and my boss had asked me to go see a presentation by a guy named Brock Pierce. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't know what this is about. But he's like, yeah, there's something interesting going on with crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain and the media industry. And I think, there's something going on. I just want to see what's going on. Just give me a little report, see what's going on. A lot of people are making a lot of money, but there's some new business models that are being invented right now. So I'm like, okay, cool. I was 22 at the time. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I saw this presentation. I was like blown away. I was like, my mind, like the first time I truly experienced, like, wow, my mind is blown. I just learned that like the dollar isn't backed by gold. Like, why didn't I remember that from like economics, like in school? Like, I guess I was shitting around in high school, and like, I just learned about fractional reserve banking. And like, I just learned like that, there's these new systems out there that have been around for, I guess at the time they've been around for 7 years or 8 years or something. Bitcoin had maybe 6 years. And so I was like, oh, okay, like interesting. Like there's a whole new form of money, and there's a whole new way. And he was like talking about like the death of the corporation and like the death of the government. And like we could now have decentralized autonomous organizations that are run by the stakeholders in it. And it's all executed in public, transparent, fully auditable ways. There's no more behind the curtains. It's just a whole new world. So I was just like, dude, so in. And he goes, my number one word of advice to anybody who's listening, he goes, you probably think I'm crazy, because I think I'm crazy sometimes, but no worries. Anybody who gets involved in this, you just go down this rabbit hole. But my number one word of advice to you is just go download Coinbase, buy $50 worth of Ethereum, buy $50 worth of Bitcoin, send it to an exchange, send it to a wallet, or send it to an exchange, or exchange it for a different currency, and just see there's a whole world of money that is outside the traditional financial system, right? You don't have to necessarily ever go back to US dollars. There's just a whole new world. So I did that. And I remember just like my first transaction, I was like, wait, I just sent, $50 worth of this Bitcoin from this one exchange to this other exchange. And like, I have a balance. and I have a debit and I have a credit, and I'm like, there's no like financial institution involved. So that was definitely the mind-blowing moment for me. And then since I was in the media industry, and really focusing on, I wanted to be like down the line, a financer, like an executive producer of, scripted series and stuff. That was kind of always one of my dreams and stuff, which I might go back to one of these days once I have the money to finance things, I guess. But or raise a fund to go finance some really cool, inspiring content that's not just garbage and dilutes everybody's mind, which is one of the reasons why I got out, was just because I was like surrounded by trash. And I was like, dude, Hollywood is a fucking part of my language, but it's just not a good place. It's just no good things come out of there. So it'd be cool to have like a really good natured, content producing network. But that's a lot what we do with Crypto 101 too. So but yeah, I studied basic attention token, and that was one of the ones, it was an early coin that was attacking the media industry and trying to realign incentives between publisher of content, consumer of content, and advertiser on that content. So since the beginning of media, those have always been the three core components of what creates media, right? And so they said, hey, we're going to reinvent this whole thing. Advertisers are going to start paying consumers for their attention. And they're only going to be opting in, and people are going to be retaining their privacy. And every advertisement, because one of the things about advertising, it's a black hole. It's a black box. I mean, like no content consumer or content producer ever knows, how many advertisements or how many views these advertisements are getting, and an advertiser won't know how many advertisements they're getting if they're out of control of it. So there's just this murky, there's lack of transparency and lack of trust because, everybody wants to hold their data so close to themselves. And so nobody wants to give that up. And so what ends up happening is, because of that selfish nature inherent in the media industry, the consumers end up, getting crappy quality ads that aren't targeted well and don't mean anything, or they're, irrelevant, or they're totally invasive and, inappropriate or unwarranted or unwanted and all those sorts of things. And the consumer ends up just paying, either in their mind space with their attention, or just, with their money, just losing money by, losing time. And so what ends up happening with basic attention token is that it just reshifts this paradigm. And we're actually seeing, we're actually seeing that play out. Brave browser is kind of the first use case for the basic attention token. And I've used Brave browser for like 2 years, and like I've made, like, just from browsing the internet, like $300 or $400 just of these basic attention tokens. Like I was like crazy. Like anybody who's not using it, you can't, like, why would you not use it? And it just gets you way better advertisements. It preserves so much of your privacy. So when I saw that, like, okay, you have Bitcoin and you have Ethereum, and then you have like other sorts of models that redefine like entire industries, then I just dove down the rabbit hole. I was like, wow, you could do fully verifiable and transparent supply chains. You could do all sorts of different crazy stuff. So that was really my first foray into radicalization, if you will say.
Well, I mean, you bring up a lot of great points though, because like with the basic attention mining, it is creating a new ecosystem that self-aligns everybody's self-interest, which I absolutely love. And I think that's not the only kind of use case that you're seeing inside of crypto and blockchain where that happens. A lot of what's happening inside the ecosystem that I've seen is they're aligning everybody's self-interest so that it makes it work, where there's no kind of like push and pull a lot of the times because one party wants to, hold on to this information. It's all public. It's all on the blockchain. So a lot of good stuff to unpack there, but I want to shift gears into more of kind of the overarching like blockchain and crypto worlds from where you see it. What are going to be some of the biggest hurdles in regards to the industry itself in the upcoming, next 5 years?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. It's always been the question. What is it that could stop crypto? And I gave a huge presentation on this recently. I'm not sure if you caught it, but basically every single person that I ever talk to that comes on the podcast or that I hang out with, whatever, they always say regulation, right? So if the smartest people in the room are always saying regulation, that's what I'm going to say. Because I like to be the dumbest guy in the room, because that's how you get smarter.
Yep, exactly.
And so everybody says, it's hard to know the future with what regulators are going to do and what their stance is and how they're going to portray it and how they're going to, enact and enforce rules and stuff like that. But historically, so regulation has always been the biggest kind of roadblock to adoption, because if there's not proper guidelines in place, then a bank isn't going to touch it. And if a bank can't touch it, then a consumer can't touch it, or a merchant can't touch it. And so that's the top level. Like if we don't have pure, streamlined guidelines for everything, right? From SEC, IRS, FINRA, CFTC, right? Who does all the commodities and derivatives regulation. No matter who it is, you need that clarity. But the most important, I think, news announcement that we've had this year, maybe the most important news announcement that we've had since I could even remember, was the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, who is it's one of the largest it is the largest branch, I believe, of the Treasury, the U.S. Treasury. And a couple months ago, maybe a few months ago, I would say, depending on when we put this out, but they had Brian Brooks become appointed as the head of the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. Brian Brooks was the chief legal officer of a little company called Coinbase, which is, the unicorn, right? It's the most valuable company in crypto. It's the largest by every metric. Maybe, standing toe to toe with Binance. Those two are probably duking it out for users and for profit and all sorts of stuff like that. But so the chief legal officer of Coinbase leaves to go run a department of the U.S. Treasury. And then on July 22nd, releases, that most bullish announcement since I've ever known, where they said there's now clear framework for national banks and federally chartered banks to handle cryptocurrency. So the guidelines are now there for your Wells Fargo, your Chase, your Bank of America, your clear-cut rules and guidelines for how the Treasury Department and all the departments that handle that fall under the Treasury and that are prone to those regulations, they all now know how, what to classify it as, how to account for it, all that kind of stuff. And so once we got that on July 22nd, you could look at the charts. It's very, very clear that this was a hugely bullish fundamental event that changed the course of regulation. So once you have stuff like that, you have more institutional products hitting the market, more institutional trading venues, all sorts of stuff like that. I think that was another going beyond regulation. One of the things that a lot of people would say is just, it's very hard to source large amounts of liquidity in these markets. So big players were always kind of bulwarked. They couldn't get in, right? They were stopped, because if they're going to play a market, they're going to trade, $1 million, $10 million trades. And in crypto, last year, 2 years, 3 years ago, there was just no possible ability to do that without moving the market against you, incurring huge amounts of slippage, because there weren't really aggregated order books and sophisticated trade execution platforms across all the venues. So what we see now, and probably one of the favorite podcasts that I ever recorded, was with a guy named Dave Weisberger of Coin Routes. That was episode, let me check real quick. That was episode 330. Former Morgan Stanley VP and city managing director goes all in on crypto.
That was, you recorded that this summer?
Yeah, I think we recorded that in April. I want to say I think I remember. April. Yeah, it was right after the big liquidation across all the markets, when everything sold off, highly correlated sell-off between every single asset, including bonds, which was unprecedented. Right. It was just sell everything that's not nailed to the floor, get into cash because the world is burning. Like Bitcoin's down 50% in the night. BitMEX's liquidation engine was just market selling. And there were no buyers. So when we recorded that, but long story short, he's building an awesome platform that aggregates all these order books and gets you the best execution across every different venue. And now beyond that, I think he also was one of the early quant devs, or he was one of the early quant devs at Two Sigma, which is like one of the biggest hedge funds like in existence.
Right.
So when you have guys like that coming into the market and noticing it, and building out products, he's building that product with his son. It's called Coin Routes, and it's just a really impressive. So when you see guys like that coming in, who are just like, this market is awesome, and here's how we're going to put together the plumbing. I think that's probably, it's
right.
like regulation and plumbing is probably the point I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah.
Is that you need to have that plumbing just to get everybody able to, have that movement of capital efficiently through
Right.
this new ecosystem. So that, and then lastly, I'll just say, one of the things that just kind of keeps people out, this is just coming from like what, my girlfriend will say or what family members will say. It's just not, easy to really understand. People get overwhelmed. So I think there's a big educational gap when people are just like, like, why do I have these 12 words? Like, why is that my path? Like, why, if somebody sees these 12 words, like, can they steal all my money? That doesn't make sense. And so like trying to abstract away like that confusion and making things like a little bit more like familiar, I think will also get us to the right place, because you could have the best regulations and the best plumbing, but if nobody wants to use it and it's just confusing, if you don't have that end consumer, and that ever expanding universe of buyers and users, which is key to a bull market, you're not gonna have a successful ecosystem.
Yeah. It's funny because I follow this one account on Twitter, and it shows what the $1,200 stimulus check would have been worth had you put it into Bitcoin. And I think it's already doubled in value in US dollars. And like every day, this guy just posts like its value, its current US dollar value. So like it goes to show you this ecosystem is working. And it's so early on, even though like I just got started like a year ago just listening to your show. Like what would you recommend to newbies, like where to go? Obviously listen to your podcast. What are some other resources that you're telling newbies to get involved with or learn about?
Yeah, you have to go to cryptorevolution.com. This is like the top, the top level, top of the funnel kind of idea of like, I just heard about crypto yesterday. Where do I go? This is a site that me and my team have put together, cryptorevolution.com. We wrote a book. The book is yours for free, guys. You just have to pay shipping, and shipping, it's like domestically like $7.95. So I want you guys to go there, get that book, start to understand, and join Crypt Nation. Join the group, ask questions, because again, there's over 6,000 different cryptocurrencies out there. How do you know which ones are best for you? How do you know which ones are long-term holds and short-term swing trades and stuff like that? And like, it's really hard for anybody to like kind of sift out the cream from the crop kind of thing. And when you have, a group of people that have been in it for a long time, that are all helping and putting out content and staying on top of the market, that's how you're not going to lose your shirt. That's how you're going to kind of stay in the loop, because you guys have, everybody has full-time jobs these days. And, I was lucky enough that crypto afforded me the opportunity to build my own business and go for literally months, like 6 months without paying myself, with just nothing, like just eating ramen and like hanging out in like a 248 square foot apartment for 16 hours a day, like trying to build a business. Like if I was living, hand to mouth and couldn't, and again, margins were slim, and there were months when it was getting really scary and stuff. But that's America's dream. That's capitalism, right? That is the entrepreneur. That is, building a business is something that you believe in, something that you would, almost die for, essentially, and saying that this is going to be the movement, and this is going to be my legacy, and this is going to be what I'm going to bring to the table, and here's how I'm going to help people and contribute, because I believe in this wholeheartedly. And so there were definitely months where, we were scraping the bottom of the barrel, but, people figured it out. People got excited. We wrote the book, we put it out. It got tremendous reach, and, everybody came together and, wanted to help us. They saw what we were doing. And, so I think that is honestly like, that to me is the best resource that I've ever found. I'm biased because I wrote it and I started the whole movement, but, if you want to go there, I mean, another great website, that they're starting to put out a lot of good stuff, coinmarketcap.com. They got a cool blog, CoinGecko. Shout out to those guys. They got great stuff. Obviously Coinbase, they have a really good blog, but that's, there's tremendous resources and tremendous opportunities to profit in this ecosystem. So you're doing yourself a really big disservice if you don't at least check it out. You heard about it. If you don't at least check it out, you're probably doing yourself a disservice here.
Awesome, man. Now we're going to move into the fire round here. These are going to be the quick hitting questions.
Cool.
What person, place, thing, or idea has had the biggest impact on you?
I would probably say my faith. My faith in God has always been something that has kept me grounded and kind of like trying to see the big picture in life. It's always just been, people are religious, people aren't. It's dying off. I wouldn't say I'm like a super religious dude, but I have faith in God, and I have faith that kind of everybody needs to just be selfless, and that is how the world is going to turn. And I know firsthand that like if you're a good leader and you have good morals, and if you have good intentions, like you're going to be blessed with more and more. And something that I've kind of felt like in my life has just been, I've been blessed with a lot because I'm trying to honestly be a good steward of everything that I have. And that's like, one of the first books of the Bible, right? Like God gave the world to man, allegorical or not, who knows, right? And he said, you guys be good stewards of what you have. You take care of the world, take care of people, take care of each other. And so that has always been something that has kind of harkened back to my life, and I reflect on it every day, is that you have to stay humble. The moment you start getting proud, and the moment you start thinking you're smart, and the moment you start, thinking that you're better than anybody, is the moment you're going to fall. And so kind of being able to just stick to your faith and just knowing that like you're small, like at the end of the day, dude, all that matters is your heart and your character and how you treat people and how you treat yourself and how you think of yourself. Like nothing else matters. Like money doesn't matter. You could burn it all today, like whatever. Like if you have love in your heart, that is all that matters. And for me, just like people find that in many different ways, right? People don't, need, a faith in God in order to have that same principle burned into their skull. People get to that reasoning a million different ways, and God bless them. But for me, that's what it's been. That's what drives me. That's, just knowing that, I could leave the world a little bit better than I found it. And along the way, obviously, right now we're in crypto and we're building businesses in crypto, and we see that this is an awesome opportunity for financial freedom and to kind of give power back to the people. We feel misrepresented by the government. I think a lot of people feel misrepresented by the government. So it's like, why don't we take power into our own hands? Why don't we, be good stewards of what we have and try and spread the word, and try and, be a good example and be a good leader. And I think that just goes a long, long way. And that's really what wakes me up in the morning.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, is there a particular book, blockchain related or not, other than your own book that you've written,
right,
that is one of your favorites?
I would say The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammou. He is just one of these scholars that I've always looked up to. Never met him, never really spoke with him. We've had a couple of exchanges on Twitter. When I sent a picture, I was like reading his book, and he said like, thanks for buying it or something like that. Really, really, really good economic theorist. I don't even know if he would want to be called that. He's pretty spicy.
Okay.
But I think that he wrote a really good book in The Bitcoin Standard that really covers the basis of sound money and why we're all here. That's on Amazon. I read that front to back like several times. It's just so killer. So
right.
Killer. And he comes from a school of thought called Austrian economics. And he teaches that. And yeah, just an awesome guy. That book has made a huge impression on me. The other book that made a huge impression on me as like a market analyst and as a trader is a book called Reminiscences of a Stock Market Operator by Jesse Livermore.
Okay.
Jesse Livermore used a pseudonym when he wrote it. His pseudonym was Edwin Lefevre, I think, Lefevre. And that book is just awesome just because it's like written in like the 1910s, like 1913 or something. And when he's talking about trading the stock market and looking at price action and seeing how the market is just emotion. It's just people buying and selling on emotion. And when you could kind of spot those divergences between price and value, that's where the real opportunity lies. That one really hit home for me. And it's just it's like a fun, like narrative, like first person story of like, he's just telling his life story of like, I was a kid. Wow. I, wanted to bet and make money. So I went to this little bucket shop. It's lost money hand over fist, and started to read the tape, right? Read the price action and be able to see when people were getting irrationally exuberant. And when he was like, hey, this thing was just trading here. And there was some news that came out, a lot of volume came in. That might be, an overextension of a trend. And so he started to do all that kind of stuff. And it's still the same. People haven't changed.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing those. Now, what are your top 3 apps that you're using on your phone related to crypto or blockchain?
Yeah, great question. I would say, a great on-ramp and off-ramp, you're gonna have, Coinbase, right? You can't really go wrong with the market leader. And they've just proven themselves time and time again. Personally, I like Trust Wallet. That is a non-custodial wallet where you can kind of own your own private keys. It's super user-friendly and it holds all sorts of different cryptos. Those are my top 2.
Okay.
And beyond that, Uniswap is a cool app. I don't use it on my phone, but it's a pretty cool app that you could get on desktop, uniswap.org or uniswap.exchange. Those are pretty inventive apps. eToro, they were a sponsor of ours for a really long time. They're not a sponsor of ours anymore, but they've been great people to work with, like genuinely great people, to be, they just run a good business. So, those are a few for sure.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on for today's show. Where can people get in touch with you, learn more about the show? You've recommended a few different spots, but why don't you give a little more?
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me, man. This was a ton of fun. Very, great questions. And again, check out cryptorevolution.com. You could go to crypto101insider.com. That's where, is kind of where you could start to get a feel for what we're doing. Those are some really good resources. You got to check out altcoinalert.com, and for your viewers /discount. And then, follow me on Twitter, or, I'm Bryce _ I don't even know what my Twitter handle is, actually. I am ... I am at Bryce Paul 101. So shoot me a follow on Twitter. My DMs are open, all that good stuff. But we'd love everybody to get involved as much as possible.
Yeah. And one more thing about your show is that it does such a good job of going from every angle, from the beginner to intermediate to expert. And a lot of the people you're bringing on are absolute experts in whatever the field there is. One in particular that sticks out to me is when you had the lady from Honeywell come on and talk about the marketplace, about buying, aerospace engineering parts and making sure blockchain was verifying all the parts were authentic. Like those are the episodes that really stick. And like, for me, that's where I got my first 6 months of knowledge. So once again, go check out Crypto 101 podcast. Bryce Paul, I appreciate you coming on today, man. Awesome time.
Much obliged, man. We'll have to do it again. This was awesome.
For sure.